At the wedding, I discovered a shocking secret that transformed my son's tears into inspiration. Claire stood on the cusp of a celebration that felt more like a masquerade than a joyous reunion. Adjusting the too large plaid tie around her son Sam's slender neck, she couldn't shake off the tightness in her chest. The wedding glittered with newly minted wealth, a wealth she could only aspire to through her exhausting shifts at the hospital. She brushed a stray lock of hair back, searching for reassurance in Sam's eyes. Instead, she found shadows flickering, an unease that mirrored her own. "Mom, do I look okay?" Sam mumbled, twisting his fingers as he watched well-dressed families reveling in their happiness. She could see it, the flicker of disappointment in his gaze as he gauged the distance between them and this realm of comfort. Claire's heart sank. What was scant affection compared to extravagant displays of affection? She longed to breach the gap and pull him into the fold of joy, but each laugh and warm glance from afar reminded her just how far they were from that picture-perfect life. As they traversed the grand hall, bedecked with twinkling lights and floral arrangements that seemed to breathe wealth, Claire felt the contrast of their modest existence ripple through her. She had spent years cultivating hope in their little home, ensuring Sam knew he was loved, even as bills stacked up on the kitchen counter like ominous towers. The laughter swirling around them was intoxicating, yet stifling, each joyful note a reminder of what she couldn't provide, a palpable sense of belonging. Halfway through the reception, the flicker of a shocking realization ignited within Sam. While Claire was swept up in the warmth of distant relatives, Sam involuntarily glimpsed the side conversations and hushed tones speaking of a trust fund. One whispered secret he never expected to hear. He stood frozen, the gravity of the situation pressing down. Through the thin walls of familial chatter, he understood that he and his mother weren't merely overlooked, but abandoned by someone who could have changed their life. Panic slashed through his innocence. If there was a fortune waiting, why hadn't his mom spoken of it? The weight of it coiled around his heart, tightening. Sam hurried to Claire, the urgency ripe in his voice. "Mom, I overheard. There's money, a trust fund from Grandpa." Her expression faded, the laughter of the celebration dissolving into a deafening silence. Anger and confusion twisted together in her gut. Remembering the man who'd walked away, leaving nothing but a gaping hole in her life. She masked her emotions behind a glance that could cloak her heartache. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire felt the world tilt beneath her, emotions warping in chaotic hues. Sam's discovery cut deeper than any sharp instrument. This wasn't about the lost riches. It was a betrayal of her past, a darkness she shielded him from. How could he want to plumb the depths of a history that had left them with nothing but scars? His innocent question echoed, "Do we want to be just like them, Mom?" The notion rattled her. It hung in the air, heavier than the crystal chandeliers above. Struggling to combat the tumult churning within her, Claire felt the walls of their fragile bond bracing against invisible pressure. This moment could redefine everything, forcing them to confront not just their circumstances, but the demons of her past. Would diving into this legacy strengthen their relationship, or tear apart the love she had fought so hard to nurture? Each option clawed at her senses, pulling her toward an edge she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Claire's heart pounded, a relentless drummer in her chest as she reeled from Sam's unveiling. How had she failed to prepare him for the scars of their lineage? She gazed into the mutual confusion reflected in her son's eyes. The distorted blend of nobility and desperation loomed large over them, and Claire knew that the answers lay beyond the confines of their modest life, but also beyond the walls she had carefully built around them. "Sam, listen," she whispered, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "That money, it comes with... There are strings attached. Things aren't always simple." She searched for the right words, the right framework to explain the complexities of familial ties and hidden legacies that had haunted her for years. Could she navigate this turbulent discussion without unraveling their fragile world further? For a moment, silence enveloped them. She watched Sam wrestle with disappointment, confusion, and an emerging curiosity. He was no longer just a child. He was her partner, adding weight to the choices she had made. She realized he was hungry for authenticity, perhaps even capable of comprehending their reality in ways she hadn't acknowledged. Then, taking a breath, deep and steady, Claire spoke again. "Your grandfather. He wasn't a man who valued family. He believed money could fix everything, but it didn't. What wealth he had never filled the void of absence he left behind. I wish it were different." Claire faltered, her focus drifting momentarily. The sting of abandonment clawed at her throat, threatening to choke the words before they could surface. Sam absorbed the revelation, his expression shifting from stunned to contemplative. "But Mom, if there's money, why can't you just take it? We need it." The plea was innocent, yet laced with a longing for stability, a longing Claire had wished to shield him from all these years. The guilt slashed through her resolve. "Because Sam, it's not just about taking money. It's about understanding who we are and what we choose to carry forward. She hesitated. The truth was complicated, and the risks she had navigated alone loomed larger now as she considered sharing them. "Do you want to meet him?" Sam's eyes twinkled with hesitant hope. "He could give us a better life, right?" The way he phrased it unsettled her, puncturing the dream of independence she had fought to instill in him. Claire shook her head, determination sharpening her tone. "Meeting him might not be the answer. We can't chase after what we believe will make things easier. That's how cycles repeat, Sam. We have to find our way, our own strength." As she spoke, the resolve ignited within her. She hadn't been just a caretaker. She was a mother with agency, capable of leading them from shadows forged in abandonment to light born of resilience. Seeing Sam softly nod, something shifted. The tumult in Claire quieted. In this moment of connection, she recognized the power they held, not in external validation, but in the unwavering bond built on love and understanding. The conversation had transformed her, revealing a woman who could not only stand firm, but also inspire her son to embrace their shared history without succumbing to it. Yet a question lingered like smoke in the air. If Sam sought to bridge the gap to a family shrouded in neglect, could Claire remain resolute? The notion stabbed into her thoughts like a needle. Would she falter when faced with the very man whose absence had defined so much of their lives? A decision loomed on the horizon, and as Claire matched her son's unyielding gaze, she felt the weight of her choices bearing down. And in that heartbeat, she realized the monumental task ahead. There were no easy answers, only the promise of uncomfortable truths waiting to be unearthed. Just as she prepared to strengthen their resolve to persevere, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the moment. It was an unknown number, but what if it was a call about the trust fund? Claire looked at Sam, maintaining a steady eye contact full of questions and defiance. The new tension settled between them. One decision could redirect them toward their past, or toward a future unknown. Claire felt her pulse quicken as the phone buzzed insistently against her thigh, disrupting the fragile peace they had just forged. The mysterious call had the potential to unravel everything. She couldn't ignore it, not now. Not when choices loomed like shadows, ready to engulf them. "Give me a moment," she said softly to Sam, her voice steadier than she felt. She stepped away, each footfall echoing the apprehension squeezing her chest. The screen lit up, revealing a name she hadn't seen in years, Rebecca. Her heart sank. Rebecca was her childhood friend, the one person who had dared to confront the truths Claire had tucked away. She had been the last link to the past Claire was eager to sever. And now this. "Claire?" The voice on the other end was bright, yet cautious. "I've been trying to reach you, and I think it's urgent." "Urgent?" Claire's mind raced. Did she dare invite doubt back into her life? "What do you mean?" "I got a lead on your father. Well, he's not who you think he is. Not anymore. You need to know what's happened." The words wrapped around Claire's consciousness like a vine strangling a tree. She had spent a lifetime distancing herself from her father's legacy, shrouding herself and Sam in the protection of silence. Now, the resolve she'd built began to flicker. "Why now?" she asked, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Because he's in trouble, and it involves money, big money, the kind that could affect—" "Don't say his name," Claire interrupted, anger fueling her urgency. "I'm not interested in his problems." "But he might be reaching out to Sam," Rebecca pressed on, and Claire felt her stomach churn at the thought. "He might want to reconnect." "Connection? From him?" Claire scoffed. "He thinks he can buy us off with money after years of abandonment?" "I refuse to let Sam be a pawn in that game." Yet, a voice deep within her whispered of uncertainty. Did she have the right to make that choice for Sam? The clashing emotions left her breathless. What if this was an opportunity they couldn't afford to dismiss? "What's the catch?" Claire demanded. "You're clearly not calling just for me to ignore this." There was a pause, and the silence screamed louder than any words. "I know what you're trying to protect, Claire. But sometimes, facing the truth about where you come from means finding out your own strength, not just for you, but for Sam, too." Reeling, Claire felt the weight of Rebecca's words penetrate the protective wall she had carefully constructed. Could venturing back into her past help forge a more resilient future for Sam? She looked back to where Sam stood, uncertainty dancing in his eyes as he waited for her return. "I need you to tell me everything," Claire finally said, her throat constricting with the weight of what lay ahead. With each revelation, Claire became acutely aware of the choices she had made over the years, choices rooted in fear and avoidance rather than empowerment. The lines between past and present blurred, each whispered truth beckoning her to confront what lay on the other side of the chasm she had forged. As Rebecca began to outline a plan, a way to gather the threads of their family's tangled history, Claire felt a swell of determination rise within her. This was not just about confronting her father. It was about rewriting their narrative. But a burning question lingered. Could she truly embrace this journey without losing herself, and Sam, in the process? As she returned to her son, she knew a reckoning was coming. One that would test their bond and illuminate the shadows of their past. And there it was again, the insistent vibration of her phone, as if even the device itself was urging her toward the next step in their life. What awaited her when she finally pressed accept remained shrouded in uncertainty. As Claire looked at Sam, the weight of their unknown future settled heavily on her shoulders, promising both challenge and opportunity. But first, they would have to navigate the storm that had always resided just beneath the surface of their lives. Would they emerge stronger or more fragmented than before? The answer lay ahead, just out of reach. Claire returned to Sam, the weight of unknown revelations heavy in her heart. She took a deep breath, aware that her next steps were about to redefine not just her past, but their entire future. Sam looked up at her, his expression weary yet curious. He sensed something was different. As she knelt beside him, her resolve solidified. "Sam," she began, her voice trembling yet firm, "we need to talk about your grandfather." The words felt like shards of glass sliding from her throat, a hard truth pushed into the air between them. His eyes widened, and she saw the flicker of anxiety shadow his innocence. "Do we have to?" he asked, a slight tremor in his voice. It was a question that validated her own doubt. She remembered her father as a ghost of disappointment, more phantom than parent. "We do," Claire replied, steeling herself against the surge of emotions. "I found out that he's in trouble, and it seems it might affect us." Sam blinked, processing her words. "What kind of trouble?" "Money trouble," she answered delicately, trying to shield him from the harshness. "Rebecca thinks it may be serious. We need to figure out how to handle this together." "What if he tries to take me away?" Sam's voice was barely above a whisper, yet it sliced through Claire's heart. The image of a distant grandfather reaching out to Sam hung in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash chaos. "I won't let that happen," she assured him. Yet the conviction felt hollow in her gut. The next several days morphed into a whirlwind. Claire and Rebecca hammered out a plan through late-night phone conversations, gathering insights about her father's current life. The further they dug, the more Claire felt herself descending into an uncomfortable truth. Her father was enmeshed in something bigger than either of them had anticipated, far from the tired narrative of abandonment she had etched in her mind. Curiosity began to wrestle with old wounds, forcing Claire to confront veiled questions about their legacy. Memories of her father's failures fought with fragments of who he might become, fueling an inner turmoil that made her second-guess everything she had thought she knew about family. As the revelations mounted, Claire found time slipping through her fingers like sand. The conundrum she faced hovered over her like a dark cloud, demanding clarity. She started to question not just her father's actions, but her own motivations. Were her attempts to shield Sam anchored in love or fear? One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Sam humming a tune while Claire chopped vegetables, an idea suddenly struck Claire. What if we went to see him, not to reconcile, but to understand what he wants? The thought bubbled out of her, shocking even herself. The prospect of stepping into that realm felt like stepping onto a battlefield, but she sensed it could be the key to both their healing. Sam looked up, fists clenched. "You really think that's a good idea after everything he's done?" "It might be the only way for us to move forward, Sam," she replied softly. "I want to protect you, but maybe this is how we reclaim power over our story. Together." The determination in her voice emboldened them both. Yet beneath that courage, Claire felt an undercurrent of fear competing with hope. What if this journey unveiled more than they bargained for? Would she find new strength, or would she unearth haunting truths? Sam offered a small nod, uncertainty still resting in his features, a silent agreement to confront the shadows looming over them. "Let's do it," he finally said, a blend of defiance and resolve gleaming in his eyes. As they prepared for what lay ahead, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that decisions were cascading toward a moment of reckoning. The path they were about to embark on thrummed with the electric pulse of challenge and opportunity, laced with the prospect of redefining their family's legacy. The next morning, they stood before a different reality, a shaky foundation that would ask them to be brave in ways they had never imagined. Would this venture peel back the layers of their shared past and help them build something stronger? Or would it expose fractures too deep to mend? Claire gripped the handle of her car, the engine humming its readiness, and the journey loomed larger than either of them could anticipate. As she turned to Sam, she saw not just a son, but a partner in this uncharted adventure. "Ready?" she asked, heart racing in unison with her thoughts. "Ready," he breathed out. And in that moment, Claire felt the undeniable pull of an inevitable confrontation, not just with her father, but with the truths hidden within herself. The drive through the winding roads felt longer than it should have. Claire kept stealing glances at Sam, who stared intently out the window, a landscape of uncertainty painted across his face. Anxiety danced in her chest, morphing into a suffocating weight. Each mile was a reminder of the emotional terrain they were navigating, a terrain laden with potential landmines that could shatter the fragile new path they were trying to carve. "What are you thinking about?" Claire finally asked, breaking the silence, her voice soothing but laced with concern. Sam hesitated, his words caught between the fear of saying too much and the need to express everything. "What if we end up regretting this? What if he just makes it worse? She appreciated his honesty. It mirrored her own internal struggle. I've thought about that too. But it's important to confront the things that scare us. It's how we find out what we're made of. His eyes shifted toward her, and for a brief moment, the tension eased. She was reminding herself as much as him, trying to quell her own fears. As they drove, the city began to take shape around them, filled with memories both bitter and sweet. Claire's heart raced at the thought of stepping into her father's world, the very world she had distanced herself from years ago. This journey wasn't just physical. It was about reclaiming a narrative she thought she had closed the book on. Arriving at the dilapidated house, time-worn and familiar, yet strangely foreign, Claire felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Sam opened the door before she could react and stepped out into the embrace of the late afternoon sun. "Stay close," she cautioned, almost instinctively. This was their first step into a past that challenged everything they believed about family, love, and loyalty. As they approached the weather-beaten front door, Claire felt a surge of memories, bitter arguments, accidental kindnesses, and the slow unraveling of her childhood. She raised her fist to knock but hesitated, a whirlwind of conflicting emotions swirling inside her. Finally, she rapped at the door. The sound echoed through the stillness, a proclamation of her resolve. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a frail figure that sent shards of nostalgia through her. Her father stood there, eyes clouded with confusion and an undertone of something she hadn't expected: vulnerability. "Claire?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, as if testing the sound of her name. The sight of him, despite the years and errors that had built a wall between them, sparked something deep within her. "We need to talk," she stated, a calmness surprising even herself. Sam clutched her hand tighter, and she felt the weight of his fear meld with her own. She stepped inside, the room feeling dense with silence as they faced the man who had shaped so much of their lives without even realizing it. Claire focused on the task ahead. "We're here because we need to understand what's happening. Your troubles, they affect more than just you." He shifted uncomfortably. "I never wanted this for you two." The apology hung heavy, a reminder of everything that had gone unspoken. For the first time, Claire sensed that maybe, just maybe, her father was not the one-dimensional villain she had sketched in her mind. There were layers, pain, regret, fears, that made him human, perhaps even understandable. "What do you want?" Sam asked, his voice shaking slightly, but holding an underlying strength. The question hung in the air, setting the stage for a confrontation that would unravel not just familial ties, but the very fabric of their identities. Claire breathed deeply, ready to peel back the layers of resentment and hurt, eager to discover the truths that potentially lay on the other side. But as they began to speak, a look darted across her father's face, something sinister, something that suggested this was just the beginning of a much darker chapter. Claire steeled herself. The moment had arrived for revelations she had never prepared for. Now, the bigger question emerged. Would these revelations bind them together or rip them apart? As the words started to flow, Claire sensed the fragile boundary between hope and despair shatter, revealing the chaos within. Would she finally find closure, or was this just the beginning of a battle for her heart and Sam's future that she hadn't anticipated? The air inside the house felt thick and oppressive, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the impending storm. Claire's father had stepped aside, offering them a reluctant invitation into a world woven with tension and unspoken history. As they entered the dimly lit living room, Claire took a moment to steady her nerves, her heart beating a frantic rhythm. She glanced at Sam, who remained close, his expression a mix of apprehension and determination. This moment was pivotal. Claire knew she could either continue to paint her father as the antagonist or seek to understand the man he had become in the years they had been apart. It was time to confront the narrative she had internalized for so long. "Let's start with the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the emotional tumult swirling inside her. "What do you want from us? What are you going through?" Her father's brow furrowed, and the vulnerability she had glimpsed moments ago seemed to fade under the weight of shame. I've made mistakes. The bottle has controlled me, but I want to change. I need help." He sighed, his voice thick with regret. Despite her years of resentment, Claire felt an unexpected surge of compassion. "Then why not ask for it? Reach out. You could have known us all this time." "I was afraid of what you would think of me." He looked at Sam, his eyes pleading. "I didn't want you to see the man I've become. I thought you'd hate me." Claire shook her head. "All that hostility I harbored, it wasn't about you. It was easier to blame you than to face my own pain. But I'm done letting fear dictate my life, and you should be too." The weight of her words hung heavily in the air, laced with threads of confrontation and understanding. Sam's grip on her hand tightened, signaling his support. She could see how much this mattered to him too. Suddenly, a flicker of confidence ignited within Claire. What if this was the turning point they both needed? This exchange, though delicate, had the potential to reshape her relationship with her father and perhaps salvage his future. The thought invigorated her with a newfound sense of purpose. "What do you say we start from here? Let's work on rebuilding this bridge," Claire proposed, her tone softer yet firm. Her father hesitated, the storm within his eyes evident. "I don't know if I can face all the things I've done. It's easier to hide." "Nothing worth having is easy," Sam interjected, his voice steady. "You have to be willing to confront your demons. We're here, ready to help you, but you have to want it too." A flicker of recognition passed across her father's face. Claire had seen it before, when she had bravely decided to pursue therapy, when she had started to peel back her own layers of insecurity. The vulnerability was less a defeat than a call to the courageous part inside, beckoning her father to embrace his own potential. At that moment, she realized that this painful confrontation could birth a new beginning, not just for her father, but for all of them. The prospect of healing loomed large, daring her to delve deeper for the truths that had remained buried. Claire looked between Sam and her father, determination igniting her resolve. She was ready to challenge her father, but more importantly, she was prepared to confront herself. "Let's talk about your past. What led you here?" she asked, her heart racing as she braced herself for the revelations that would emerge. As her father began recounting his struggles with painful honesty, Claire sensed the fragile fabric of the moment tethering them to possibilities yet unexplored. And with each word, she felt the weight of hope rekindle, awakening a desire within her to rise above the chains of resentment. But just as clarity emerged, a chilling secret slipped from her father's lips, wrapping around her with a cold grip. Her world teetered on the edge of upheaval as she braced for revelations that could alter everything she thought she knew. What was the secret that would turn the entire conversation on its head? And how would it redefine their paths moving forward? The words hung in the air like a heavy mist as Claire's father unveiled a truth that rattled her core. "Claire, your mother." He paused, the silence thickening with unspoken anguish. "She was forced to leave because of me. My drinking. It drove her away." A wave of conflicting emotions crashed over Claire, shock, anger, sorrow, clashing with the burgeoning hope she had felt moments ago. She had often imagined her mother's departure as an act of betrayal, a choice that had left Claire and her father ensnared in spirals of misery. Yet here was a truth unraveling before her eyes, shaking the foundation of what she had long believed. "Her leaving wasn't your fault," Claire managed to utter, her voice trembling as she considered the implications of his admission. I was the one who pushed her to the edge," he interrupted, desperation etched in the lines of his face. "I saw the pain in her eyes, but chose the bottle instead of facing it. I thought I could drown out the hurt, but it only led to more suffering." As he spoke, Claire recognized how this pivotal moment altered her own perception. The mother she had idolized in her memories now occupied a space of gray complexity. She was more than the silent victim. She had fled from a man trapped in his demons, hoping to save herself and, by extension, her children. Was Claire prepared to accept that? Sam tightened his grip on Claire's hand, steady and supportive, but she felt herself slipping, teetering between the man who had inflicted hurt and the regretful father before her. "What happened after she left?" Claire asked, a tremor of dread in her voice. "Everything fell apart. I spiraled deeper into the bottle, losing everything. My job, my sense of self," her father lamented. "I didn't want you to know all this. I thought it would be better if you saw me as a monster rather than understanding the man I used to be." "And what about now?" Claire pressed, unleashing her own vulnerability, a visceral need to dig deeper into the roots of their fractured relationship. "What do you plan to do with this understanding? How can I trust you?" Taking a deep breath, her father reached out, a tentative olive branch. "I'm getting help. Finally, I'm taking this seriously. But I can't make this right on my own. I need to heal with you both. I need a chance to redeem myself." Claire's chest felt heavy with the weight of his plea. There was a part of her that wanted to seize this offer, to build bridges, but deeply ingrained caution urged her to take a step back. This wasn't merely about him anymore. It was also about her own healing journey. "Words are just words," she said, grappling with the myriad of emotions swirling within her. "Proving change is what matters. You need to show us you are willing to do the work." "You think I don't want to?" he asked, standing a bit taller, spurred by her challenge. "You have no idea how hard this is for me. But facing my past is my only path forward. Together, we can change our story." Claire felt Sam's presence unwavering beside her, his silent encouragement urging her to push through the storm. The room pulsed with potential, yet she remained uncertain how to navigate this new terrain. "Okay," she finally said, feeling a cautious empowerment blossom within her. "Let's start with small steps. You can't undo the past, but you can create a different future. We all deserve that chance." But even as the words flowed from her, Claire couldn't shake the unease settling in her gut. Was she ready to take this leap of faith? And what if the darkness in her father's past held deeper secrets, uncharted territories that could still resurface? As the conversation began to shift toward practical steps forward, Claire couldn't escape the feeling that something was still lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Before she could voice her thoughts, her father, eyes clouded with shadows, murmured, "There's more to it, Claire. The real reason your mother left, it wasn't just me." A chill swept through the room, amplifying the tension. Claire's breath hitched and her heart raced. What could be worse than the heartbreak she had just uncovered? Would the truth set her free, or would it chain her to a reality she wasn't prepared to face? Claire's stomach churned at her father's words. "What do you mean it wasn't just you?" she demanded, her voice tightening with urgency. The walls of the room felt constricted, the truth seemingly pressing in like a vice. He glanced at Sam, whose supportive presence began to dissolve into a murky blend of concern and confusion. Claire turned back to her father. "If there's more," she insisted, "I need to know now. No more secrets." Her father's breath was laden with hesitation, and in that moment, Claire realized that the trust she was beginning to extend could be shattered in an instant. "It wasn't just my drinking," he began, his eyes darting away. "Your mother. She was unhappy even before I started losing myself to alcohol. There were issues, more than I was aware of." "What issues?" The words slipped out before she could temper them, but now Claire's resolve hardened into a sharp veneer of determination. She had trudged through her own valleys of pain. She wasn't going to stand by while he played his emotional card. "I didn't realize how deeply she felt trapped in our lives," he admitted. "It wasn't just about my behavior. It was our life together. Everything." Her mind raced to catch up with this new revelation. Was he suggesting that her mother had suffered in silence for years, bearing burdens she hadn't recognized? A wave of consideration washed over Claire as she recalibrated her understanding of her mother, not as the simple villain of her childhood, but as a more complex figure ensnared in a world of dissatisfaction. So what? She was just unhappy? Is that the excuse for abandoning us? The anger spilled out before she could contain it. No, I'm not saying it's an excuse, he replied, grief spilling from his voice like rain on parched earth. What I'm telling you is that I didn't see her struggle. I was too lost in my own. There were times she reached out, times when I could have helped, but I was too far gone. We both failed each other. And I drove her away. Claire was left reeling. What if part of the distance between herself and her mother was rooted in more than just her father's demons? What if the complexities of love, of mutual discontent, fear, and lack of communication had all played a role? So, you see, he continued, seeming to read her thoughts, if we're really going to heal, we have to face the entirety of our shared histories, not just my mistakes. His gaze met hers, piercing yet filled with remorse. Are you willing to listen? To understand? She pressed her lips together, the urge to lash out still bubbling beneath the surface. But the strength in his plea was undeniable. It signaled a vulnerability she had often longed for, yet remained afraid to embrace. She gathered herself, weighing the turmoil tumbling inside her mind against the sincerity of his emotions. Fine, Claire relented, her voice subdued yet firm. But if we're going to do this, it's going to hurt. We'll confront everything, together. Sam shifted beside her, a reassuring touch on her back. But as Claire turned to him, a harsh reality struck her. This conversation, these revelations, had implications not just for her relationship with her father, but also for her future, the relationships she would create based on trust and honesty moving forward. The possibilities on the horizon ignited a mixture of hope and anxiety within her. She had taken a step she never thought she could. She had chosen to confront her past and dismantle the fortress of pain that often defined her. Yet, another gnawing feeling surfaced. What of her mother's silence? What had it masked? Tell me, she urged her father, suddenly feeling as if the walls of curiosity were caving in. What more did she hide from me? What did I not understand? As the words left her mouth, the weight of hidden truths hung like a storm cloud. The realization dawned that the real journey was just beginning, and her resolve to uncover the entirety of her family's narrative would test her more than she ever expected. But in seeking answers, would Claire uncover more than she bargained for? What would those truths ultimately cost her? Claire steadied herself as her father's confession settled like ash in the aftermath of a wildfire. She sought clarity in this moment, shrouded in confusion and turmoil. Was my mother involved with someone else? The question slipped from her lips, tainted with a mixture of dread and desperation. Her father shifted uncomfortably, momentarily lost in thought. Not in the way you think. It's more complicated than that. It was about her yearning, her search for happiness beyond the confines of our home. But it wasn't infidelity. It was freedom. A swell of conflicting emotions boiled within Claire, anger fighting against a burgeoning understanding. Her childhood armor, built on resentment, now felt flimsy. Did love and guilt wove into the fabric of her parents' history? So, she sought freedom through silence? That's what you're saying? He sighed, his expression weary. She wanted a different life, Claire, but she didn't know how to express that to anyone, not to me, not to you. And in not speaking her truth, she became distant, desperate. Something in her broke, and I failed to see it. Claire's mind raced, her mother's distant demeanor, the silence that had settled like an anchor. Was that all rooted in unexpressed dreams? A rush of newfound empathy flared within her, challenging the long-held animosity towards the woman who had walked away. Her mind fought against the instinct to cast blame. But she chose to leave us. That's the paradox, isn't it? Her father's voice softened, as if to breach a chasm that had long defined their relationship. You can love someone and still feel trapped. It was her way of gaining control over a life that felt out of hand. But it tore everything apart. In that moment, Claire felt the bricks of her childhood resentment shift, revealing a framework built not solely on pain, but on the tangled relationships that demanded acknowledgement. Her mother had been more than just an absence. She was a woman begging to be seen amidst her struggles. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she opened herself to the painful possibility that her mother's actions were rooted not in selfishness, but desperation. Maybe, Claire began hesitantly, now grappling with the fact that her journey was morphing into a significant quest for self-discovery. Maybe it's about understanding, not just assigning blame. If we're confronting our history, we have to look at her choices with a new perspective. Her father nodded slowly, gratitude flickering across his features. I need you to know that I wasn't prepared for the role of protector. I failed your mother, and in turn, failed you. It consumed me. And now, uncovering these truths may be the only way we can begin anew. The notion of building something from shared ashes where both disappointment and understanding lay pooled invoked a stirring resolve within her. Her heart began to pulse strongly with the idea of progression, of steps she could take. Could she bridge this gap between past and future? I want to understand, but it feels overwhelming. How do we even start? By confronting the unspoken, he replied, an edge of determination creeping into his voice. We have to dig deeper, confront our weaknesses and insecurities. Every answer we reveal leads to healing. It's not just about your mother, it's us too. Claire swallowed hard, feeling that familiar fear stitch itself into her mind. Yet intertwined with that fear was the budding possibility of empowerment. What if addressing the truths could lead to something transformative, both for her and those she loved? It would not only redefine her understanding of her family, but also unveil aspects of her identity she had yet to explore. As resolve strengthened her stance, she understood that the journey ahead wasn't merely about reconciliation. It was about her own transformation. But would she be able to confront the very essence of her mother's silence? Before we go any further, she said, her heart pounding with determination and doubt alike, there's something I need to know. What really happened between you two? When was the moment things started to unravel? As the question hung between them, Claire sensed the significance of what was to unfold next, knowing it held not only the story of her family's past, but also the key to her own personal evolution. With every beat of silence, the atmosphere grew electric, charged with the weight of unconfessed truths. Claire's father took a deep breath, gathering the threads of a story that had long remained tangled in shadows. It all began when life started to feel suffocating. Your mother felt trapped in a marriage that was rapidly losing its promise, and my descent into alcohol only accelerated her sense of entrapment. Claire's heart raced as she absorbed his words. This wasn't just about her mother's departure, it was an unraveling of dreams unfulfilled. So, she left to save herself? She ventured, the questions pouring from her like the dam that had finally broken. Yes, he replied, his voice trembling. But she didn't perceive it that way. To her, it was about preservation of her spirit and her sense of self. But in my haze, I interpreted it as betrayal. Sam shifted beside Claire, the connection palpable between mother and son, a bond strengthened by shared experiences and deep-rooted understanding. She could see the flicker of realization in Sam's eyes as their parallel journeys intertwined. Claire forced herself to maintain eye contact with her father. What you're saying cuts deeply. This unfulfilling part of my mother's life isn't just an excuse for abandoning us. It was a struggle we never saw, never understood. But how do we rebuild from here if you're still clinging to guilt? The question hung like the last vestiges of autumn leaves clinging stubbornly to branches. Guilt is a heavy anchor, Claire. It keeps me bound to a past that can't be changed. But I want to change. For you and Sam. I can't keep using my past as a crutch. I need to be better. We all do. With each confession, Claire felt a crack in her heart where fresh understanding seeped in, replacing resentment with compassion. Then what comes next? I can't navigate this complicated past unless I know a way forward, she asserted, her heart swelling with an empowering swell of intention. Forgiveness, he replied, the word resonating with startling clarity. It starts with understanding, but it progresses to forgiveness. We have to forgive each other, your mother, me, ourselves. It's the only way to carve a path towards our future. Claire felt the weight of his words settle over her like a soft blanket. The thought of forgiveness had always sat at a distance, a notion cloaked in impossibility. But as she now stared into her father's eyes, she began to sense the fragility of both their desires to heal and rise above where they had fallen. Forgiveness, she repeated slowly, the word tasting foreign yet revealing. Doesn't it also mean re-examining our own places in this struggle? To forgive doesn't excuse the hurt. It reclaims our agency. But how do we truly let go? By choosing to see each other as humans, flawed but trying, he responded, urgency weaving through his voice. Letting go of blame opens space for healing. The air shifted as Sam spoke up, his youthful clarity cutting through the emotional current. I don't want to lose any part of our family. I want us to understand, but I also want to move forward. Claire recognized the wisdom radiating from her son, the very strength she had been hoping to nurture within him. You're right, Sam. Whatever we uncover, it has to serve us. We cannot let the past bind us. She turned back to her father, whose weathered face revealed the scars of regret, but also the flicker of hope. Let's do it together, she said firmly, heartened by the journey that lay ahead. If we begin to peel back these layers with honesty and openness, perhaps we can finally achieve the understanding that evaded us for so long. Her father nodded, and for the first time behind his weary eyes, Claire saw a semblance of resolve. As they sat there, Claire recognized a new power awakening within her, the ability to choose healing instead of being bound by a narrative of anger and resentment. The chains that had long held her back began to loosen, revealing the potential for a future unfettered by the shadows of the past. Days turned into weeks as Claire embarked on an intentional journey of discovery alongside her father and Sam. Each conversation became an exploration of emotions nestled deep in their hearts. They unearthed layers of disappointment, regret, and budding compassion. A painstaking excavation through which Claire gained not only clarity, but also a profound strength. By embracing forgiveness, she slowly learned to release the emotional grip of her childhood and open her heart to the simpler truths of growth and resilience. Within those vulnerable discussions, Claire transformed into a symbol of courage. It was spearheaded not through bitterness, but through compassion, the kind that embraced the humanity in those around her. Finally, as they stood at the precipice of self-discovery, she felt firmly rooted in her new identity, a conduit of growth, united with Sam in the promise of a brighter legacy. They could reclaim their narrative with dignity. No longer were they merely victims of their past, but architects of their future. Claire reached for Sam's hand, squeezing it tightly. No matter what unfolds next, she affirmed, her voice steady with resolve, we'll navigate this journey together. We've conquered the shadows. Now it's time for the light. In that moment, they solidified not only their bond, but also their newfound understanding of the beauty that lay in resilience, an achievement far beyond their previous struggles. As they stood together, united in this transformative journey, Claire felt a sense of pride swell within her, an embodiment of agency and compassion merging flawlessly to guide them toward a future bright with possibilities. Now was the moment to build anew, with every lesson learned propelling them forward into a life filled with connection, openness, and mutual understanding. And now, you have the chance to continue this journey with us. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share more inspiring tales. Comment your reactions and theories about Claire's transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion. You need to subscribe now and don't wait even one more second to share the tale of personal overcoming and resilience. True fans of inspirational journeys understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.